Hello and welcome to our first session in the disciplinary seminar at CESA Business School. My name is Juan Carlos Correa and I have the privilege to be with you this semester to understand the most basic skills we need to learn in order to kick off our doctoral dissertation. All right, in our first session we are going to get a glimpse to the doctorate in business administration, and today's lessons are as follows. We will understand why a DBA is vital for research and development. We also will understand the resources of a DBA, the shortcuts to graduating from a DBA, how to master the literature search, and how to kick off your doctoral proposal. Okay, let's begin with a few motivational considerations. Regardless of a student's perception, a DBA is the highest educational degree that someone can get, same as a PhD, but in the field of business administration. A DBA implies belonging to a community of researchers despite being a weak or a fragmented one. Here, PhD comics illustrate in a funny way what could be an idea of belonging to this type of community. We mostly discuss ideas that can help us solve particular kind of problems in the industrial sector or the productive sector, as well as the problems that we face in the academic world. But beyond that, what type of research is done by a DBA? Well, to understand this, we really need to make a division, so to speak, into two different worlds. On our right, we have the business, the real world, real people trying to make money by solving problems or offering a bunch of different services or products. But these products and services are not produced in a vacuum. They are somehow the result of very scientific activities, which we can understand, roughly speaking, into three different categories. Formal science, here we have mathematics, logics, and basic science, which is based on formal science, of course. And here we have biology, physics, chemistry, and so on. And applied sciences. Here we have the whole range of engineering disciplines, psychology, education, management, and so on. So a DBA, a doctor in business administration, is someone who is in the middle of these two worlds. Is someone who understands that scientific enterprise is about observation, trials, experiments, measurements, hypotheses, theories, and so on. But the result of these activities are useful to produce solutions and solve problems in the real world. And this doctor in business administration knows how to build a bridge between these two separate worlds. Now, in the doctoral in business administration, it is quite important to understand the difference between basic research and applied research. In applied research, we are mostly interested in new knowledge, but a particular type of knowledge that could have specific commercial purposes, like products, procedures, or services, and try to answer specific questions aimed at solving practical problems. And these two objectives are quite distinctive from those in basic research. But in this semester, we are going to see different examples that illustrate us how this division, this separation, or the border that separates basic research from applied research sometimes can be quite fuzzy and no longer clear to distinguish. And this is pretty normal, and we really need to understand why applied research sometimes can be seen or regarded as basic research, as well as the other way around. So in a DBA, we also need to understand why our studies are vital for research and development. So in order to answer this question, I'm going to quote a previous paper in which we posed the question if scientific productivity can impact the economic complexity of countries. And what we found is that scientific productivity, particularly those in basic sciences and engineering, has a significant positive effect on the economic complexity of countries. Nonetheless, this relationship only remains stable for high-income countries, where university, industry, government capabilities interact to stimulate and generate innovation and strategies for economic growth. So a person with a DBA, as I mentioned, is someone who knows the type of problems enterprises and markets face precisely and understand how to solve them with scientific principles. So if we want to take an analogy, for example, probably the idea of Tony Stark in Iron Man movie could be a very good analogy. As we could remember, Tony Stark represents a successful entrepreneur who also understands some of the engineering principles, and he designed by himself all the technical devices that accompanies the Iron Man suitcase, the Iron Man suite. So in order to achieve such a profile, we also need to understand what are the resources of a DBA. In that sense, we could illustrate that profile as someone who knows how to look for, retrieve, write, and hopefully publish the most relevant topics in the field. So a DBA should know how to use common sources of information, not precisely Google, but Google Scholar could be a very good starting point. Nonetheless, we will see in a minute that Google Scholar should not be the only source that a DBA should know how to use. In fact, as a researcher, someone with a DBA needs to go beyond Google. So let me put another analogy for you to understand what a DBA needs to know. When you travel, you need where to get some items for eating. So for example, if you are in Europe, probably you will go to Lidl. If you are in Latin America, in Colombia, you will go to Éxito. If you are in Mexico, probably you will visit Oxxo. If you are in Spain, probably you will visit Mercadona, and so on and so forth. Why? Because these are pretty essential retailers that allows you to eat and get some items for survival. Likewise, when you are in a DBA, you need to know where the technical knowledge is. And these are the academic editorials. So you need to understand that Emerald Publishing specializes in business and management topics, for example. Oxford University Press is also another editorial that provides different journals in different disciplines. Likewise, Elsevier, Springer, Frontiers, Wiley and Blackwell, Informs, Taylor and Francis, and so on and so forth. So the analogy here is the one you see in the slide. The analogy should be clear by now, right? So technical knowledge is available in technical journals edited by academic editorials. And here, if you see this picture, you have quite specific professional journals for different disciplines. For example, you have the Journal of Product Innovation Management, the Journal of Family Business Strategy, the Journal of Leisure Research, and so on and so forth. But I also include in this slide another couple of journals that fall beyond the natural limits of management science or managerial disciplines. But I took these journals to illustrate why specific journals are the most important source of information for you to consult, for you to review on a daily basis. Here we have, for example, the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery. Of course, it goes without saying that this particular journal could be interesting for someone specializing in veterinary medicine. And also you have the Journal of Global Fashion Marketing, or the Journal of Sport Management, or the Journal of Vacation Marketing, Young Consumers, Porn Studies, or even 3D printing. So as you can see, the titles of these journals, you quickly realize that the most specific knowledge is available in those particular journals. So you really need to get familiarized with where the technical knowledge is. But in order to follow this, you neither need Google nor search technical information on each journal website. Don't worry, I'll show you in a moment. So before going to that particular point, I'm going to show you some shortcuts to graduating from a DBA. First things first, you really need to know your masters. You need to learn from them, partner up with them, as well as publish with them. But also, you also need to plan a research journey. Test it daily, and if not working, try another plan. So you have here two, let's say, options, but in practice, you have a whole range of intermediate points between these two. You can choose going from theory to data, and from theory, you realize what could be the possible methodological approaches to get the data, the relevant data that you need to have in order to complete your doctoral proposal. Or you can go the other way around. You can start from data, then choosing the methodological approach, and then try to identify a theoretical contribution. Regardless of what you choose, the important thing here is that you always keep moving. So if you are asking, what does it mean to keep moving? It means you need to read and write about your thesis every single day. And if you think that the comic here is quite funny, yes it is, but it also illustrates the type of reality that normally doctoral students face, including those in doctoral in business administration. So the more you look for technical papers, the better you become. So this is like where you are going to a gym that you need to train yourself until you increase your performance and your endurance while training. It's the same in a doctorate. The more you practice, the better you become. So let's go straight forward then to our most important part of this lesson, mastering literature search. And for this particular topic in today's lesson, we'll need that, as I previously mentioned, we need to go step by step. You start with a short step, which is the one I'm going to illustrate you in a moment. Then you learn how to improve those results until you get a successful point. So the first things you need to understand is how to get familiarized with the list of journals in your field. And for that purpose, you have Simago Journal and Country Rank. You can Google it to find a particular website, and read carefully the journal scope and the publication frequency in a year of each particular journal. I'm going to illustrate you in a moment this. So journals like soccer teams have their rankings. Few of them are more prestigious than others, but the most important thing here to learn is that prestige, as captured by the H index, should not be the only thing to consider when looking for papers. So we will learn our first technical tool that will help us in the goal of finding the most relevant papers for our topics, regardless if we are interested in finance, marketing, consumer behavior, management decision, and so on. So our tools will be R and RStudio. Even though you probably have heard that R is a programming language, in our course we are not particularly focused on learning how to code. We are going to use RStudio because we will leverage the capabilities that bibliometrics, a particular library in R, will provide to us when looking for technical papers. So I'm going to describe a pipeline, which is the one you see here. We'll need to go to the data sources. Then we have to work with a preferred input data that we will use in RStudio and analyze with bibliometrics. So let me illustrate you an example. Here I am in Scopus, and I wrote Net Promoter Score, with criterion search with the article title, abstract, and keywords. And the result was 170 documents that fulfill or met that particular criterion. But if I change the criterion, like for example, writing down once again Net Promoter Score, but now you see that I put that these three words should be present only in the article title, instead of retrieving 170 documents, I got 29 documents. Now let me put another example. Here I have a couple of criteria. First, I wrote Net Promoter Score, just exactly as the first example that I illustrated before, and this is the important part, I also include this international standard serial number. So this means that I'm asking to Scopus to give me a list of those documents that met those two criteria at the same time. And as you can see in the top of the slide, no documents were found with these two criteria. So as you can see, depending on how you use your search criterion, you will get different results. Now, at this moment, you probably might be wondering, then what could be the best strategy? Well, it turns out that there is no single answer to that particular question, because it all depends on how deep you want to go in your literature research. Here I have another example, which is based on Web of Science, which is another source of data equivalent to Scopus. And once again, I put Net Promoter Score, and I got 133. So you might be wondering, why, if example 4 is exactly the same as example 1, in Scopus I got 170 documents, but in Web of Science I got 133. The answer relies on how many journals are indexed in each of these particular subscription-based services. Web of Science, as a particular source, includes a bunch of different journals, but not all the journals that are present in Web of Science are also available in Scopus. And actually, I would say that nowadays Scopus have more journals than Web of Science. Nonetheless, the important lesson here is that you really need to understand how to use Scopus as your primary tool for looking for information, technical information. So here I have a fifth example, exactly the same example 2 that I mentioned before, and now I got 21 documents instead of 29 as those that I got with example 2. So once I identify the results, the idea is to export the data in a particular format, which is in BIP text. I'm going to explain this in a minute, and use this input to analyze the information that is contained in this particular file. Here you have a print screen, how to export the BIP text file from Scopus, and you got a list of different articles structured as follows. As you can see in the first line, we have the type of document, because we have books, we have articles, we have proceedings, conference proceedings, book sections, and so on. Then you have the title, of course, then you have the author, the year in which the particular document was published, the journal where it was published, or the publisher, and so on. So by using the BIP text file, we are now in the position to leverage bibliometrics, as I'm going to show you right away.